The DNA test was routine, just another checkbox on the medical readiness form. Spit in a tube, seal it up, send it to some lab that would add my genetic profile to the military's medical database. They told us it was for identification purposes, in case something happened and they needed to, well, you know. I didn't think twice about it. None of us did. It was 2019. I was 3 months into my second deployment in Syria, and we had bigger problems than bureaucratic medical procedures. Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison, age 32, 10th Mountain Division. That's who I was. That's who I thought I'd always be. The results came back 6 weeks later. Captain Hendricks called me into his office on a Tuesday morning. The Syrian sun was already brutal at 0800, and the prefab building's air conditioning had given up 2 days prior. He was sweating through his uniform, but that wasn't why his hands were shaking when he closed the door behind me. "Morrison, sit down." I'd been in the Army long enough to know that tone. Something was wrong. My first thought was my daughter. Emma was only 4, and my wife Sarah was dealing with everything alone back in North Carolina. My second thought was my father. He was 68 now, still healthy last I heard, but you never knew. "Is it my family, sir?" Hendricks looked at me like he didn't know where to start. He had a manila folder on his desk, the kind with red classification stamps across the top. "Your family is fine. This is... Morrison, I need you to understand that what I'm about to tell you stays in this room. Nobody else in your unit knows. Nobody back home knows. And it needs to stay that way until we figure out what the hell is going on." My stomach dropped. "What's going on, sir?" He opened the folder. Inside was my DNA test result. I could see my name at the top of the page, but there was something else. Another document. A photograph. "Your DNA test came back with a flag in the system. A familial match. Close relative. The system automatically cross-references with other databases." Other databases? Intelligence databases. Combatants. High-value targets. The room felt like it was tilting. I don't understand. Hendricks turned the photograph around. It was a surveillance photo, grainy but clear enough. A man in his early 30s, Middle Eastern, wearing traditional Afghan clothing, dark beard, eyes that could have been mirrors of my own if I didn't know better. "This is Karim al-Rashid. He's been on our target list for 5 years. Coordinates insurgent operations across 3 provinces, responsible for 14 confirmed attacks on coalition forces. We've been trying to locate him since 2014. I stared at the photo. "Okay, what does this have to do with my DNA test?" "According to the genetic analysis, you and this man share approximately 25% of your DNA." He paused. "That makes him either your half-brother, uncle, nephew, or grandparent. Given the age parameters, half-brother is most likely." I laughed. I actually laughed. "That's impossible. Sir, with all due respect, that's completely impossible. My father's from Montana. He's never even left the country except for fishing trips to Canada. My mother's family is Irish and German, going back generations. There's no way—" "Your father served in Afghanistan, 1979 to 1980, before the Soviet invasion. We were still friendly with the Afghan government then, had military advisors stationed in Kabul." The laughter died in my throat. "He never mentioned Afghanistan?" I thought about my father, John Morrison. Quiet man, ran a hardware store in Helena, watched football on Sundays, taught me to fish when I was 7, never talked much about his time in the service. "Before your time," he'd say whenever I asked. "Different world back then." "No," I said quietly. "He never mentioned Afghanistan." Hendricks closed the folder. "We need to investigate this. Quietly. If this genetic match is accurate, and the lab ran it 3 times to be sure, then we have a situation. Either it's a coincidence, some kind of testing error, or my father had a relationship with a local woman 40 years ago." Yes. I sat there in that sweltering office, trying to process what I was hearing. My father, my quiet, steady, never raised his voice father. The man who'd driven me to school every day, who'd taught me how to change a tire, who'd cried at my wedding. That man had a secret from 40 decades ago that was now sitting in an intelligence database connected to an insurgent leader. What do you need me to do? Before I tell you what happened next, if you're hooked on this story, hit that like button and subscribe. There are dozens of more voices like mine here. And drop a comment with your country. I'm curious where all of you are listening from. Hendricks pulled out another file. First, we need to verify this independently. I'm sending you back to the States. Medical leave, officially. Unofficial, you're going to talk to your father. Find out if this is even possible. Don't mention the DNA test directly. We can't risk word getting out about our genetic database capabilities. But see what you can learn about his time in Afghanistan. And if it's true, then we have a conversation about what it means for you, for your deployment, for this situation. I flew out of Syria 36 hours later. The whole flight back, I kept pulling up that surveillance photo on the encrypted tablet they'd given me. Karim al-Rashid. The name meant the rightly guided one. Some guidance, coordinating attacks that had taken American lives, that had taken the lives of guys I knew. Corporal Danny Chen had been caught in one of al-Rashid's IED attacks in 2017, lost both legs. 23 years old. I had visited him at Walter Reed before this deployment. He was learning to walk again on prosthetics, smiling through the pain, telling me it wasn't so bad. Al-Rashid had done that, and now they were telling me he might be my brother. The flight landed at Fort Bragg. I had 3 days of leave before I was expected back for medical evaluation. 3 days to drive to Montana and have a conversation I never thought I'd have. I didn't tell Sarah the real reason I was home, told her there was some medical paperwork issue, nothing serious, just military bureaucracy. She was thrilled to see me, and Emma squealed so loud when I walked through the door that the neighbors probably heard it. For 12 hours, I pretended everything was normal. Had dinner, watched my daughter's new dance moves, made love to my wife like a man who wasn't carrying an impossible secret. The next morning, I drove to Helena. My father's hardware store was the same as always. Bell chiming when I walked in, smell of sawdust and machine oil, country music playing low on the radio. He was behind the counter, reading glasses perched on his nose, working through an order catalog. He looked up when he heard the bell. His face split into a genuine smile. "Jake, what are you doing home?" "Medical leave, paperwork issue. Figured I'd come see you." He came around the counter and hugged me. My father wasn't a hugger usually, but he'd gotten softer since Mom passed 3 years ago. "You look good. Skinny, but good. They feeding you over there?" "MREs and regret, mostly." He laughed. We spent an hour talking about nothing important. The store, the weather, Emma's dance classes. Then we closed up shop and went back to his house, the same house I'd grown up in. He made coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd done my homework 20 years ago, and I tried to figure out how to ask a man about a secret affair from 40 decades past. "Dad, I've been thinking about your service. You never talk about it much." He shrugged. "Not much to tell. Different time. Did my 4 years, came home, started the store." "Where were you stationed?" "Here and there, mostly stateside. A little bit in West Germany right at the end." "What about Afghanistan?" His coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth, just for a second, just a tiny pause, but I'd been trained to notice pauses, to notice tells. "Who told you about that?" he asked quietly. "It came up in a briefing. Someone mentioned the old advisory mission in Kabul, 1979, said that's where some of the older NCOs had been stationed." He set his cup down. "I was there for 13 months, left right before the Soviets invaded. Got lucky with my timing." "What was it like?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Beautiful country, beautiful people. We were trying to help, you know, infrastructure projects, training their military. We actually thought we were making a difference." He smiled, but it was sad. Young and stupid. "Did you have friends there? Local friends?" Another pause, longer this time. "Jake, why are you asking me this?" I'd been trained to lie convincingly, to maintain cover stories under pressure, but sitting at that kitchen table, looking at my father's weathered face, I couldn't do it. They found something in my medical screening, a genetic match in their database, someone connected to insurgent activity in Afghanistan. The color drained from his face. "Dad, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you have a relationship with someone when you were in Kabul?" He stood up, walked to the window,
stood there with his back to me for what felt like an hour but was probably 30 seconds. Her name was Layla. She worked at the embassy, translator. She was the most brilliant person I'd ever met. Spoke 4 languages, could quote poetry in all of them, had this laugh that... He stopped. I loved her, really loved her. Thought about staying, thought about bringing her home. What happened?
Her family found out. Traditional family. They were furious. We tried to keep it secret, but everything fell apart. The Soviets invaded. The embassy evacuated. I got orders home. I tried to find her before I left, but her family had moved her somewhere, sent her away. He turned to look at me. I didn't know she was pregnant, Jake. I swear to God, I didn't know. Now, here's where everything changed. But real quick, if you're invested in how this ends, I genuinely appreciate a subscription. More soldier stories drop daily. Comment your country below. Always amazes me how far these reach. The confirmation hit me like a physical weight. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some lab error. I had a half-brother I'd never known about, and he was an insurgent leader who'd spent years fighting against everything I believed in. His name is Karim, I said. Karim al-Rashid. He's 34 years old, and he's been coordinating attacks on coalition forces for 5 years. My father sat back down. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 5 minutes. Oh, God. Did you ever try to find her after you came home? I tried for years. Letters, inquiries through the State Department. Everything shut down after the Soviet invasion. It was chaos. Then the Civil War. Then the Taliban. By the time we invaded in 2001, I figured she was probably gone. So many people were. She might still be alive, I said. Karim's file mentions family in Kandahar province. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? I was a soldier. I'd sworn an oath. Karim al-Rashid was an enemy combatant. The fact that we shared DNA didn't change the attacks he'd planned, didn't bring back the soldiers who'd been caught in his IEDs, didn't give Danny Chen his legs back. But he was also my brother, half-brother, same father. If our situations had been reversed, if I'd grown up in Afghanistan watching foreign soldiers patrol my streets, would I have fought back? Would I have become what they called an insurgent? I don't know, I said honestly. They're sending me back, want me to help with the intelligence gathering. They think maybe I can use the connection somehow. Use it how? I don't know yet. They're being vague, but they want me involved. I spent one more night in Helena. My father and I stayed up late, and he told me everything he remembered about Layla, about Kabul before the wars, about a version of Afghanistan that didn't exist anymore, about the young man he'd been who'd fallen in love with someone from a completely different world. I never told your mother, he said around midnight. She knew I'd been in Afghanistan, but I never told her about Layla. I was ashamed. Not of Layla, never of her, but of how I'd left, of how I'd failed to protect her. You didn't know. I should have tried harder to find her, should have done more. We didn't solve anything that night. How could we? This wasn't a problem with a solution. It was just a truth we now had to carry. I flew back to Fort Bragg the next morning. Hendricks was waiting for me. Well? It's confirmed. My father had a relationship with an Afghan woman in 1979. He didn't know she was pregnant. Hendricks nodded. Okay, here's where we are. Intel has been tracking al-Rashid for 5 years. We've never gotten close. He's smart, careful, doesn't use phones, doesn't stay in one place. But we intercepted communications last week that suggest he might be looking for his father. My stomach twisted. Looking for my father? Someone in his family must have told him about the American soldier, about where he came from. The communications were vague, but our translators think he's been asking questions, trying to find information about John Morrison. Why now, after all these years? We don't know. Maybe he's just curious.
Maybe there's a tactical reason, but it gives us an opening. An opening for what? Hendricks pulled out yet another file. We want to make contact. Through you. Let him know you exist. See if he'll agree to meet. You want me to meet with an insurgent leader? Under controlled circumstances, with full tactical support. We'd set it up carefully. But yes, if he's looking for information about his father, finding out he has an American half-brother might be compelling enough to draw him out. And then what? You capture him? Use him for intel? That depends on the situation, on what he knows, on what we learn. I sat there, trying to process what they were asking. They wanted me to use my blood connection, a connection I'd only learned about a week ago, to lure my half-brother into some kind of trap. I need time to think about this. You have 48 hours, then we need an answer. I need to tell you what happened next, but first, if this story's got you, show some love with a like and subscribe. I read every comment, especially love seeing where you're all from around the world.
I called Sarah that night. Didn't tell her the real situation. Couldn't. It was classified 6 ways from Sunday, but I needed to hear her voice. Needed to hear Emma babbling in the background about her preschool day. "When are you coming home?" Sarah asked. "Soon. Couple more weeks, probably." "Jake, you sound off. Are you okay?" I wasn't okay. I was the furthest thing from okay. But what could I tell her? Just tired. This deployment's been rougher than the last one. After we hung up, I sat in my quarters and thought about Danny Chen, about the other soldiers who'd been caught in al-Rashid's attacks, about their families, about my oath. But I also thought about Lila, about a woman who'd loved my father and paid for it by being sent away from her family, about a child, Karim, who'd grown up knowing his father was an American soldier who'd abandoned his mother, about growing up in a country that had seen nothing but war for 4 decades. None of that excused the attacks. None of that brought back the people who'd been hurt or ended. But it complicated things, made them messy in a way I couldn't ignore. I went back to Hendricks the next morning. "I'll do it, but I have conditions." "What conditions?" "If we make contact, I want honesty. No lies about who I am or why I'm there. If he agrees to meet, I tell him the truth, that we share a father, that I found out through the DNA test, that I wanted to know who he was. Morrison, this is an intelligence operation." "Those are my conditions, sir. I'm not going to lie about this, not about family. If you want me involved, we do it my way." Hendricks studied me. "And what do you think lying versus not lying changes?" "Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But if I'm asking him to trust me enough to show up, I'm not going to start that by lying to him." It took 3 days to get approval up the chain. 3 days of meetings and briefings and psychological evaluations to make sure I wasn't compromised. Finally, they gave the green light. The plan was simple. We'd put out the message through channels we knew al-Rashid monitored. A message from Jake Morrison, son of John Morrison, formerly stationed in Kabul, 1979-1980. The message would say I'd found out about our connection and wanted to meet. Just talk. No weapons, no tricks. The meeting location would be a village in a relatively peaceful district, neutral ground. UN observers present. Both sides would have people nearby for security, but the actual meeting would be just the 2 of us. "He'll never go for it," one of the intelligence officers said. "It's too obvious a trap." But 3 weeks later, we got a response. The message was simple. "I will meet my brother, one time. If you bring soldiers to take me, you will never see me again, and I will know the American military cannot be trusted even about family." We deployed to the meeting location on a Tuesday in November. The village was small, maybe 50 families, tucked into a valley between 2 ridges. The UN had confirmed it was clear of combatants from any side. Our tactical team set up 2 kilometers away, close enough to respond if things went wrong, far enough away that al-Rashid's people wouldn't see them as an immediate threat. I waited in a small clay building that served as the village elder's meeting place. The elder himself had agreed to be present as a neutral party. He was an old man, maybe 70, with a white beard and eyes that had seen too much. "Your brother, he has done hard things, but he is not an evil man.
He fights for his people. He's coordinated attacks that have hurt a lot of people. Yes, and your soldiers have also hurt people. This is what war is. Two sides, both believing they are right, both causing pain. He poured tea. But family is different than war. Family is about blood and history. Maybe you find something different when you see him. Karim arrived at dusk. I heard the vehicle pull up outside, voices in Pashto, then footsteps. He walked through the door and it was like looking into a distorted mirror. He had my father's eyes, not just the color, that deep brown that was almost black, but the shape, the way they assessed everything before committing to a reaction. He was shorter than me by a few inches, broader through the shoulders. His beard was thick and well kept. He wore traditional Afghan clothing, and his hands looked like they'd seen hard work. We stared at each other for a long moment. "So, my American brother, you speak English?" "I speak 5 languages. My mother insisted. She said education was the one thing no one could take from us." He sat down across from me. "John Morrison, that is our father's name." "Yes." "And he is alive?" "Yes. He lives in Montana, runs a small business, hardware store."
Karim absorbed this. My mother told me about him when I was 15. She said he was kind, that he loved her, that he had to leave when the Soviets came. He tried to find her, spent years trying. I know. She received one letter, in 1983, through distant relatives in Pakistan. He said he wanted to bring us to America, wanted to marry her properly. By then, she had already married another man, my stepfather. It was arranged. She had no choice. Is she still alive?" Karim's face closed off. "She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. We had no medicine. The nearest hospital was too far. I'm sorry. Are you? Your country has been bombing mine for 20 years. Your drones fly over our villages. Your soldiers search our homes. And you are sorry my mother couldn't get cancer treatment?" The anger in his voice was real, raw, and not entirely unjustified. "I'm sorry she suffered," I said. "I'm sorry about a lot of things, but I'm also angry about the attacks you've coordinated, about the soldiers who've been hurt or taken from their families because of the operations you planned. And I am angry about the wedding parties your bombs have hit, the children who step on landmines left by your military, the men taken to black site prisons and never seen again." He leaned forward. "Do not pretend your side is innocent, brother." "I don't, but that doesn't make what you've done right either." We sat in that tension. The village elder poured more tea, seemingly unbothered by the hostility crackling between us. "Why did you want to meet?" Karim finally asked. "Because I found out I had a brother, and I wanted to know who you were. Not the intelligence file version, the real person. The intelligence file version is real. I have fought your military for years. I have planned operations that have been successful. I do not apologize for defending my home. This isn't your home. You're from Kandahar province. This whole region? Afghanistan is my home. All of it. Just because I was born in Kandahar doesn't mean I cannot fight for people in other provinces. We are all one people, suffering under occupation. We're not occupying. You have bases throughout my country. Your soldiers patrol our streets. You tell us how to govern ourselves. What is that if not occupation?" I didn't have a good answer, because from his perspective, he wasn't wrong. "What did you hope would happen here?" Karim asked. "Did you think we would embrace as brothers and I would give up my cause? Did you think you would convince me to stop fighting?" I don't know what I thought. I wanted to meet you, to understand. And do you understand? More than I did, not as much as I'd like. Karim stood. "I should go. This was a mistake. We are brothers by blood, but we are enemies by choice. That will not change." "Wait." I stood too. "Do you have family? Wife? Children?" He hesitated. "I have a daughter. She is 3 years old. The same age as Emma." "What's her name?" "Amina, after my mother's grandmother." "I have a daughter too. Emma. She's 4. Something shifted in Karim's expression, just slightly. "You understand, then, why I fight. It is for her future,
for a world where she is not a second-class citizen in her own country. I understand that. But you're fighting, it's creating more violence, more suffering, including for children like Amita. And your presence here creates violence. The difference is, you can leave. We cannot. This is our home. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Our father, is he a good man? Yes, I said without hesitation. He made mistakes. He failed your mother in ways he regrets every day. But yes, he's a good man. Does he know about me? He knows now. He wants to. He'd like to meet you, if that's something you'd ever want. Karim laughed bitterly. Meet the father who abandoned my mother? Who left her pregnant and alone? No, I have no interest in that reunion. He didn't know. It does not matter. The result is the same. She suffered. I grew up without a father. That cannot be changed by a meeting now. He walked out into the dusk. I watched him go, watched him climb into a vehicle with 3 other men, watched them drive away. The village elder looked at me. You are disappointed. I don't know what I am. You hoped for more, for connection, for brotherhood. But some things cannot be bridged by blood alone. His anger is old and deep. Your worlds are too different. I reported back to Hendricks that night, told him about the conversation, about Karim's refusal to stop fighting, about the fundamental divide between us. Did you get anything useful? Hendricks asked. He has a daughter, 3 years old, named Amina. He mentioned living in an area without good medical access. His mother passed from cancer because they couldn't get to a hospital. That narrows the location parameters. Good work.
Sir, I didn't tell you that for targeting purposes. I told you because he's human, because he's a father who cares about his daughter. He's also an insurgent leader who's responsible for attacks on our forces. I know that, but he's also my brother. Hendricks studied me. Morrison, I need to know you're not compromised here, because if you are, we have a serious problem. I'm not compromised. I know my duty, I know my oath, but I'm also not going to pretend this isn't complicated. They sent me back to the States a week later. End of deployment. I came home to Sarah and Emma, and I tried to be the husband and father they needed, but something had shifted in me. Some certainty about right and wrong that had been solid before was now full of cracks. 3 months later, I got a call from Hendricks. Morrison, we have a situation. Al-Rashid's daughter is sick, serious infection. The intercepts suggest he's trying to get her to a proper hospital, but he's running out of options. Every major hospital is government-controlled, and he can't risk showing up. My blood went cold. How sick? Bad enough that he's desperate. We think he might try to reach out to you. Why would he reach out to me? Because you're family. Because he's your only connection to someone who might be able to help. 2 days later, I got an encrypted message through channels I didn't know I had. Just a few lines. My daughter is in trouble. Your military doctors could save her. I am asking you, brother to brother, for help. I know what I am asking. I know the cost. But she is 3 years old and innocent of everything except being my daughter. I stared at that message for an hour. Then I called Hendricks. He's reaching out, wants help for his daughter. This is it, Morrison. This is how we get him. We offer to help. He comes in with her. We take him. And the daughter, Amina? She gets treated. We're not going to let a child suffer, but her father comes into custody. He knows that's the risk. He's still asking. Because he's desperate. Because he loves his daughter more than he hates us. This is the opening we need. I thought about Emma, about what I would do if she was sick and my only option was to trust my enemy. I'd do it, without hesitation. I'd walk into any trap if it meant saving her. Set it up, I said, but I want to be there when it happens. I want to be there. They arranged it carefully. A field hospital near the Pakistan border, UN observers, medical staff cleared at the highest levels. The deal was simple. Karim would come in with Amina, she'd receive treatment, and he would surrender himself for detention. I flew back to Afghanistan, waited at that field hospital, and when the vehicle pulled up,
I was the one who walked out to meet them. Karim looked exhausted, scared, nothing like the confident fighter I'd met 6 months earlier. He was carrying Amina, and even from a distance I could see she was in bad shape, pale, barely conscious. "Brother," he said when he saw me, "I am trusting you. Do not make me regret it." "I won't. The doctors are ready. They'll take care of her." I led them inside. The medical staff took Amina immediately, whisking her away to a treatment room. Karim tried to follow, but military police stepped forward. He looked at me, understood what was happening. "You promised." "I promised she'd be treated. She will be. You'll be able to see her, but you knew this was the cost." The betrayal in his eyes cut deeper than I expected. "You are your father's son after all, good at leaving family behind." They took him away in handcuffs. I stood there in that field hospital, listening to Amina crying for her father in the next room, and wondered what the hell I'd just done. Amina recovered. The infection responded to antibiotics, and within a week she was healthy again. They placed her with relatives, an aunt in Islamabad who'd agreed to take her. Karim was sent to a detention facility, interrogated, processed, entered into the system as a captured high-value target. I tried to visit him once. They let me into his cell. He wouldn't look at me. "Your daughter is safe. She's with family. She's healthy. And I am here because I trusted my brother." He finally looked up. "You know what is funny? My mother always said Americans were different than other invaders, that they valued family and honor. She believed that about our father. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe blood meant something." "It does mean something." "Then you have a strange way of showing it." I left that detention facility and flew home. Got out of the military 6 months later. Honorable discharge. They gave me a commendation for my role in capturing a high-value target.
My father died 2 years after all of this. Heart attack. Quick and painless, the doctor said. At the funeral, I looked at all the people from Helena who'd known him, who talked about what a good man he'd been, how honest, how trustworthy, how he'd never turned away anyone who needed help. And I thought about Lila, about Karim, about all the ways we fail the people we love without meaning to. I still think about that night sometimes, about Amina crying for her father, about the look in Karim's eyes when he realized I'd betrayed him, about whether I'd done the right thing. The military said I had, saved a child's life, captured an insurgent leader who couldn't hurt anyone else. Clean operation, successful outcome. But I can't shake the feeling that I'd become exactly what Karim had accused Americans of being, someone who valued the mission more than the family, who'd used trust as a weapon. Sarah doesn't know the full story. I told her about finding out I had a half-brother, told her about the meeting, never told her about the hospital, about the betrayal. Some things you carry alone. Emma's 8 now, happy kid, plays soccer, gets good grades, doesn't know her uncle is in a military prison somewhere, doesn't know her grandfather had a whole other life before the one she knew. I look at her sometimes and wonder what I'd do if our situations were reversed, if she was sick and my only hope was trusting an enemy, if I had to walk into a trap knowing I'd never walk back out just to save her life. I'd do it, same as Karim did. And I wonder if that means I understand my brother better than I want to, if the only real difference between us was which side of the war we were born on. Some truths don't set you free, they just give you something new to carry, something heavy that changes how you see everything else. I did my duty, I kept my oath, I helped capture an enemy combatant who'd been responsible for attacks on coalition forces. But I also betrayed my brother, used his love for his daughter to put him in a cage, became the kind of man I'd always believed I wasn't. The DNA test was routine, just a checkbox on a form, but it revealed more than genetics. It revealed the messy, complicated ways family can exist across enemy lines, how love and duty can pull you in opposite directions, how doing the right thing can feel exactly like doing the wrong one. I got a letter 6 months ago, from Karim. Don't ask me how he got it to me. The intelligence people would probably lose their minds if they knew.
But it arrived. No return address, just my name and address in careful handwriting. Inside was a single page, written in English. Brother, Amina is 10 years old now. Her aunt sends me photographs. She is healthy and happy. She plays football and excels in school. She does not remember me clearly. This is both painful and a mercy. I have had much time to think in this place, about our father, about you, about the choices we both made. I understand now that you were not wrong to do what you did. You were a soldier following your duty, just as I was a fighter following mine. We were both trapped by circumstances larger than brotherhood. Your father, our father, was not an evil man for leaving my mother. He was a young soldier caught in an impossible situation, just as you were, just as I was. I do not forgive you for the trap, but I understand it. And perhaps understanding is closer to peace than forgiveness ever could be. My daughter lives because of you. Whatever else happened, that truth remains. You saved her life. As a father yourself, you understood what that meant. You understood what I was willing to sacrifice. I hope your daughter grows up in a better world than the one we made. I hope she never has to choose between family and duty. I hope she never has to become her father's son. Tell our father, if he still lives, that I understand now why my mother loved him. It is easy to love in peacetime, harder to love across the walls that war builds. But she did, and in our own broken way, perhaps we did too. Your brother, Karim. I keep that letter in a locked box in my closet. Read it sometimes when Sarah and Emma are asleep, when the house is quiet and I can sit with the weight of what happened. Last month I drove back to Helena, visited my father's grave, stood there in the cold Montana wind and told him about Karim's letter, about Amina, about all the ways we'd failed and succeeded at the same time. You would have liked him, Dad, I said to the headstone. You had his stubbornness, your conviction. He fought for what he believed in, even when it cost him everything. That's what you taught me to do. That's what they both did. The wind didn't answer. The dead don't speak, and maybe that's a mercy too.
I still don't know if I did the right thing. Maybe there wasn't a right thing to do. Maybe there was just the thing I did, and the consequences I have to live with. I saved a 3-year-old girl's life. I captured an insurgent leader who'd coordinated attacks that hurt people. I betrayed the trust of a brother I'd only just met. All of those things are true. None of them cancel the others out. Sometimes Emma asks me about the war, what it was like, what I did there. I tell her the safe stories, the funny ones, the ones about camaraderie and purpose. I don't tell her about the DNA test, about Karim, about the field hospital where I watched my brother get taken away in handcuffs while his daughter cried. Maybe someday I will, when she's older, when she can understand that sometimes the world puts you in positions where every choice costs something, where doing your duty means carrying guilt, where being loyal to your country means betraying your blood. Or maybe I'll never tell her. Maybe some stories are meant to stay buried. Some truths don't need to be inherited. But I think about Amina sometimes. 10 years old now, playing football, excelling in school, growing up without her father because he loved her enough to walk into a trap, because he trusted his brother even knowing what it might cost. And I think about Karim in that detention facility, writing letters in careful English, understanding more about our father than I ever could, carrying his own weight, his own complicated truths. We're brothers, connected by blood and separated by everything else, connected by love and separated by betrayal, connected by understanding and separated by all the things that can never be forgiven, only endured. The DNA test was supposed to be routine, a simple medical procedure, a checkbox on a form. Instead, it revealed that family is more complicated than genetics, that brotherhood can exist even across enemy lines, that you can love someone and betray them in the same breath, that duty and honor can pull you in opposite directions, and sometimes there's no good choice, just the choice you make and the man it turns you into. I'm not the man I was before that DNA test. I'm not sure if I'm better or worse, just different. Changed by the knowledge that somewhere on the other side of the world, I have a brother in a cell, and a niece I'll never meet who's alive because her father loved her more than he hated me. Some days I think about visiting Karim again, trying to explain, trying to, I don't know, build something out of the wreckage. But what would I say? Sorry I trapped you, but it was my duty? Sorry I chose my oath over your trust? Sorry I'm exactly the kind of man you always believed Americans were. There are no words that would make it right, no explanation that would ease the betrayal. Some things you just have to carry. Some wounds don't heal, they just scar over and remind you of who you've been, what you've done. I learned something in that field hospital, something about myself I wish I hadn't learned. I learned that when it comes down to it, I'll choose duty over family. I'll choose my country over my blood. I'll become whatever I need to become to complete the mission. That's what makes a good soldier. It's also what makes a man hard to live with, hard to love, hard to trust with anything soft. Sarah knows something changed in me after that deployment. She doesn't push, doesn't ask the questions I can't answer. She just holds my hand in the dark sometimes, when I can't sleep, when the weight of it all presses down too hard. Emma doesn't know anything's different. She just knows her dad came home, that I'm there for her dance recitals and soccer games and bedtime stories, that I love her more than anything in the world. And I do. God, I do. I'd do anything for her, walk into any trap, make any sacrifice, betray anyone. Just like Karim did for Amina. Maybe that's the real lesson in all of this. Not that I was right or wrong, not that duty trumps family or family trumps duty, but that love makes you vulnerable, makes you capable of things you never thought you'd do, makes you understand your enemies better than you want to. Karim and I are more alike than either of us wanted to admit. Two fathers, two soldiers, two men who'd sacrifice anything for our daughters. The only difference is which uniform we wore, which God we prayed to, which side of history we ended up on. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if that difference matters as much as we pretend it does. The DNA test was routine. The results weren't. And everything that came after, the meeting, the trap, the betrayal, the letter, all of it was the cost of finding out I had a brother I barely knew, a brother I betrayed, a brother who understood me better than I understood myself. I don't regret saving Amina. I'd do that again without hesitation. But I do regret the cost. I regret that understanding came through betrayal, that connection came through pain, that brotherhood exists for us only in the ruins of trust. My father went to his grave, never meeting his other son, never holding his granddaughter, never getting the chance to apologize or explain, or just sit across from Karim and see the man he'd become. That failure weighs on me. Another thing I couldn't fix, couldn't make right. But maybe some things aren't meant to be fixed. Maybe they're just meant to be carried, acknowledged, understood as the complicated, messy, painful truths they are. I'm Jake Morrison, Staff Sergeant 10th Mountain Division, retired. Father, husband, son, brother. That last one still feels strange. Brother, to a man I met once, betrayed once, will probably never see again except maybe in my nightmares. But brother nonetheless. The DNA test proved it. 25% shared genetics. Half brothers. Blood connection that can't be broken even by betrayal, even by war, even by all the choices we made that led us to opposite sides of an enemy line. I carry that with me now, every day. The knowledge that somewhere there's a little girl named Amina who's alive because two brothers, one American, one Afghan, managed to care about something more than the war between them, even if it was only for a moment, even if that moment cost one of them his freedom. And I carry the knowledge that I'm capable of betrayal, that duty can make me do things I never thought I'd do, that I can look someone in the eyes, someone who shares my blood, and lie, can use their trust as a weapon, can become the thing they always feared I was. That knowledge changes you, makes you question every decision, every loyalty, every promise. But it also makes you human, flawed, real. Not a hero, not a villain, just a man trying to navigate an impossible situation and failing in ways he'll have to live with forever. If you ask me whether I'd do it again, knowing everything I know now, I honestly don't know what I'd say. Save the girl? Yes, absolutely, without question. But trap her father? Betray my brother? Become the man I became? I don't know. And maybe not knowing is the most honest answer I can give. The DNA test was routine, just a checkbox, just a tube of spit sent to a lab for a database I'd never thought about twice. But it changed everything, revealed a brother I never knew existed, created a choice I never wanted to make, turned me into someone I'm still learning to recognize in the mirror. Some days I wish I'd never taken that test. Wish I'd stayed ignorant. Wish I didn't know about Karim or Lila or the complicated legacy my father left behind. But most days, I'm glad I know. Glad I met him. Glad I understand now that the world isn't simple, that enemies are human, that brotherhood can exist even in betrayal, that love makes you capable of anything, including things you'll regret forever. Emma's upstairs right now, practicing her reading. Sarah's making dinner. The smell of garlic and tomatoes fills the house. It's a normal Tuesday evening in North Carolina. My life is small and ordinary, and exactly what I fought for. But I'm different than I was before, marked by knowledge I can't unknow, changed by choices I can't unmake, connected to a brother I'll probably never speak to again. The DNA test was routine. The truth it revealed was anything but. And I'm still learning how to carry it. Still figuring out what it means to be a good soldier and a good man when those two things pull in opposite directions. Still trying to understand if there's any honor in betrayal when it saves an innocent life. I don't have the answers. Maybe there aren't any answers. Maybe there's just the story, the truth, the weight of what happened and the man it turned me into. That's what I'm left with. That's what I carry. A brother in a cell. A niece I'll never meet, a father who died never knowing his other son, and a daughter who'll grow up never understanding the complicated legacy she's inherited. The DNA test was routine. Everything that came after was the cost of finding out who we really are when the world forces us to choose between impossible loyalties. And that cost? It's something I'll be paying for the rest of my life.